Hi everyone, it's James here from Production Expert. Now you may remember back in December last year, 2017, we invited UK Prog Metal band Voltaire to a session at the Smokehouse Studios in East London, where we recorded them using nothing but the amazing Universal Audio Apollo range of interfaces. We had an 8, an 8P, and an Apollo Twin Mark II. So we now have the session back in the studio. We've got it back into Pro Tools, and we're going to mix one of the tracks using nothing but Universal Audio plugins. Agreed, not much of a challenge when it comes to choice because UA have indeed given us plenty to work with, but nonetheless we're going to mix one of the tracks called Defenseless Earth with nothing but UA plugins. So let's dive over into Pro Tools and see what we've got going on. So here we are over in Pro Tools, and there's a couple of things I've done just to make this process go a bit smoother. First up, I've created a drum bus, and all my drum mics route into that. There's a couple of extra channels in here, which we'll talk about shortly. But other than that, I've created a couple of reverb sends, a vocal verb send, vox verb send, which has the pure plate on it, and an EMT 140, which is my room verb. We'll get to those shortly. But what I want to do first is just let you hear the mix sans plugins, absolutely naked. Of course, some of the levels will be slightly out because of gain management and gain push, but let's hear where we're starting from. Quite a lot of guitar there, I think you'll agree, but it's all there. It's all starting to come together. So a couple of things we've done off the bat. I like to mix into a compressor or a limiter, and if I had the hardware version, I would be mixing into a Neve 33609. But to be honest, the UA plugin version sounds every bit as amazing. I love it. It's not doing very much. It's really just imparting the flavor of the 33609 rather than being a heavy limiter or compressor. But I like the sound it gives. We're just tickling the meters. So hey, let's go with it. The other thing I'm going to do is put on an Oxford limiter across my drum bus. I don't really want a flavored limiter like an SSL. I just want something that's going to control my drum kit, bring the lower parts up, pull the other parts down, and just do what a limiter's supposed to do. Most of the work we need to do is on the drums. So let's talk about that. Two channels you can see here are fake kick and fake snare. Replacing and enhancing drum sounds is part of rock music these days, so we won't go too far about how I've done it, just accept that it's happening, and I'm using the amazing Toontrack Superior Drummer to replace those parts. The snare is being enhanced with the amazing Rogers Yorktown, and the kick is having some help from the 22-inch Yamaha Beach Custom, a drum I know particularly well because I own one. There's our fake parts, and again, this is going to help our kit sound just a bit more real. Let's solo the kit at this stage so you can hear what's going on there. Just some more weight in the drums. Yeah, much better. Now I want to mix the kit into a virtual console. Now there are a few different flavors I could choose, but we used API and Neve at the recording stage, but I want to bake a bit more of that sound in, so I'm going to choose the API Vision channel strip. Let's unleash that across my mix and hear how it sounds. We're using it on kick, snare, hats, toms, the works. I'm not using the gate or compressor that are built in. I'm just using a bit of the preamp just to sort of give it more API-ness, if you like, and the EQ, which I think sounds amazing. We'll run through all the exact settings later on in the video, but you can see on the kicks especially, I'm pulling out around about 500 hertz, boosting 100 hertz to give the bass drum some weight, and the snares mainly being tamed at the bottom end, but given a bit more top end, a bit more clarity. So let's have a listen to that now. Sounding good, but it needs more punch, it needs more attack, and for that I'm going to call on the 1176 Rev A. Only on the kicks and snares, just to give it that bite. I don't really want to start taming my toms or overheads too much, but for kick and snare, the 1176 is it's a go-to. It's what I'd use in hardware, it's what I'm going to use in plugins. The settings are pretty much what you'll find on most studios worldwide. Depending on how much of the flavour of the plugin you want to impart, you might drive the input a bit harder and pull back on the output, but hey, this is working pretty well, so let's have a listen. So the kit sound is really starting to come together. We need to now put the drums in an acoustic space. Now, we had a stereo Vanguard condenser mic up on the day, so let's add that in, and I'm going to just finesse the EQ a little bit with some of the Millennia NS-EQ2. Again, I'm pushing a little bit at the top and bottom end just to try and recreate the sound we had on the day that's in my head somewhere. So bass next, let's add this into the soup. Quite a lot of dynamic range even in those few notes. I really want to lock that down, and I'm going to use an LA28. It's, for me, it always works on bass, always sounds great, and I'm going to go madly massive passive to sculpt my EQ for my bass part, and it'll just sound big and fat and lovely and warm. If we now build that bass part in with the drums, let's bring it back a tiny bit. That's better. Okay, so guitar is quite interesting. Paul self-confesses doesn't apply a lot of effects to his sound. He likes a guitar straight into an amp and get the sound from the amp. Now that's fantastic, but I wanted to put a little bit of distressor on it just to kind of control the signal and give me that kind of distressed guitar sound. And we're going to use some Tone Lux Tilt EQ just to clean up the bottom end a little bit. I think we've rolled it in at around about 100 and something. It doesn't really matter where it sounded right. So let's just have a play of those two. With the EQ bypassed, it's too muddy. And the distressor, I've got a nice mix of compression to dry sound. Now, as I've said, Paul doesn't like to cover his guitar sound and effects, but I really wanted a little bit of delay, and the Korg digital delay, the SDD 3000, sounds phenomenal. It's very, very gentle. I'm not doing very much with it. As you can see, direct to affected sound. The mix is quite on the direct heavy, but it just really adds something. Have a listen to this. It doesn't get in the way of the guitar sound, it just adds something nice. It just sounds like I think a guitar should do. Next up is the keyboard part. It's a stereo part. To be honest, it's quite a flat, kind of a paddy string sound, but it needs a bit of control. So I'm going to use the ever gorgeous DBX 160 compressor. And again, I'm putting a little bit of the Korg SDD 3000 delay just to try and make the keyboard sound a bit more interesting. I think it's really nice on its own, but this is just enhancing it and giving it a bit more interest. What can I say? It's just working for me. That sounds absolutely fantastic. Let's play back the rhythm section on their own before we get into the vocals. It's got drive, it's pretty much all there. I'm happy with that. It sounds like the band did in the room. Maybe push the kit a little bit more at this stage, but hey, we'll know once we sit the vocals in. So let's dive onto the vocals right now. Now, Dave has a very powerful voice. It doesn't need much work. It needs taming. It certainly doesn't need tuning or any of those sort of nasties, so we're very lucky there. So all I'm doing on it is putting a little bit of Marg EQ4. Again, it's tone shaping. It's just enhancing what's there and getting rid of what I don't like, which, to be fair, is not very much. My favourite vocal compressor of all time is the Fairchild. If I had $1 million, I would have a dozen of them, but I don't. And quite frankly, the updated plugin from UA sounds absolutely incredible. Other thing I'm doing is I like a bit of space on my vocal. I'm putting a bit of delay with the precision delay. It's very, very low in the mix. It's very, very wide spaced. 125 and 250 milliseconds. I have no idea if they have any relation to the tempo of the track, but it sounds really cool.
Flying around the world as fast as they can go, impatient and relentless, things they'll never know. Born to lines of blood, illusions of control.
Now in the verse, we're hardly hitting the compressor. See what happens when we hit the chorus.
And on what does it depend? Can happiness be shared? Defenseless earth, can we find a key to unlock misery? Is this a destiny? Yeah.
Very, very different style. I want that kind of big, heavy, compressed vocal sound for what we're going to do with the chorus vocals. It also doubles up with Paul's background vocal. And again, I've used the Marg, a bit of Fairchild, and these two together.
And on what does it depend? Can happiness be shared? Defenseless earth, can we find a key?
So you can hear there that obviously the drum kit bleed into the second vocal mic was quite extreme, which is why you will also see down here there's some extra BVs. After the session, after the camera stopped rolling, we went in and decided we would layer up, I'm not going to say some comedy vocals, but certainly we had a bit of fun and put some extra BVs in. So now in this section, you will hear... Now, when we tweak that appropriately, we use the TubeTech EQ just to roll off some of the bottom end and control it a little bit. We don't want the BVs to sound quite as massive and quite as upfront. And then a little bit of the SSL G-Bus compressor. Let me play back just the BVs. Defenseless earth. All three of my vocal parts sound quite dry. So let's enable the pure plate which sounds incredible, and we'll listen to all those together.
Resource without time, pollution without crime, to end this paradigm.
So we're pretty much there. What I'm going to do is I will start playback at the beginning of the track. We'll run through and I'll try and get through each of the plugins so you can see what they're doing and how they're working by the end of the song. Let's see where we end up. Let's go back to the beginning. And as they say in the movies, I'll see you at the end. So I'm really happy with how this one's turned out. The mix is great, I think. The drums sound fantastic. Yes, I know we've done a little bit of cheating with some addition of some samples, but hey, that's the world we live in. Metal and heavy rock is littered with sample replacement and sample enhancement. So we're not really cheating, we're just doing what everybody else does. The guitar sounds great, but of course the guitar and bass sounded pretty damn fine on the way in because we were using Unison plugins. So, you know, we've baked the sound in. We made that decision, we committed, it's the way forward. Vocals I'm really happy with. We did cheat a little bit, of course, and we've added some extra stuff, some sort of bulk harmonies just to give it a bit of BV-ness, if that's a real word. But overall, I'm really, really happy with this one. It's not a master, it's a mix at this stage. I'm not a mastering engineer. This would have to go off to someone else. But what you've heard on the video is the track as we've mixed it so far, with a little bit of limiting for YouTube, of course. But other than that, that's it. It's worked really well. It's come together very quickly. And I really hope you've enjoyed this two-part video series where we've used nothing but UA gear. We used the Apollos in the tracking session and UA plugins in the mix. And it sounds really fantastic. I hope you'll agree. So my name's James Ivey, and I'll see you again very soon for some more Gear Talk.